Dr. Welsh, you're on mute. If you could please unmute yourself.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. My name's Dr. Donald Welsh. I'm a professor of physiology at the University of Western Ontario. And like Dr. Brittle and Phillips, I'm a public servant, and I have the privilege of speaking out and publicly addressing, I think, some concerns. I thought I'd start today by just considering some of the words of Richard Feynman, who was a physicist and Nobel laureate, who whimsically stated the following about science. If you don't make mistakes, you're doing it wrong. If you don't correct those mistakes, you're doing it really wrong. And if you can't accept you're mistaken, then you're not doing it at all. This axiom poignantly frames where we sit today, 15 months into a respiratory viral response. We have been told by the public health community to follow the science, but that science has been incorrect, and as a society, we are uncomfortable confronting this fact. Instead, we plow forward and we are subjected to obfuscation and misdirection. No one or no institution can ever proclaim to be an oracle in science. We uncover the truth through debate that is boisterous and sometimes unpleasant. But when reasoning is combined with transparency, science moves society forward in a productive manner. I want to be clear. Science has not been functioning properly for the last 15 months as we address COVID-19. Our public health community has proclaimed to know science and to provide unassailable solutions. Those solutions in the forms of NPIs, lockdowns, masks, track and trace, and social distance, perhaps well-intentioned, have largely failed, and they have created a remarkable list of harmships for Canadians that will take this country many years to recover from. The reason I and Dr. Brittle and Phillips are here today is because we want to reclaim what we love about science. In particular, I'm here to support Dr. Phillips and Brittle, who have worked hard to reveal what they see as a truth. Their thoughts on patient treatment and vaccination are well considered, backed with published data, and informed by government databases. For this, they have been publicly attacked, openly ridiculed. Their academic and personal livelihoods have been threatened. This behavior is unacceptable in Canada and it's antithetical to an open and enlightened society. It is time for all in Canada to engage in critical thinking, to question all aspects of public health response to COVID-19. We need deep engagement. We need thoughtful debate to turn this public health response around. This public health response hasn't kept up with the facts on the ground. It's time for Canada to right our ship and move forward productively together. This includes, I believe, in the end, a full and robust Royal Commission to publicly address the many flaws that appear to underlie this public response. Thank you.
Thank you so much. What moving presentations. I am just stunned. Thank you so much for telling your stories. And we all, and I personally, I recommit to standing for what is true in this country, whatever the cost. Thank you so much for that. It was so moving. Thank you all for listening to this today. And I hope that this is spread far and wide until we see some sanity in this country once again.
And we're ready for questions. Quick reminder to reporters, one question, one follow-up per reporters. Nous allons maintenant passer aux questions. Un petit rappel aux journalistes, une question de suivi. Operator, do we have a first question?
Si. Please press star 1 at this time. If you have a question, s'il vous plaît, appuyez sur les touches étoile 1. Maintenant, pour poser votre question, there will be a brief pause while the participant register for question. Il y aura un court délai vous permettant de vous enregistrer dans la file d'attente pour la période de questions. Thank you for your patience. Merci de patienter. Thank you. Merci. The first question, la première question, is from Rachel Emmanuel of High Politics. Please proceed. Your line is open.
Good afternoon. Thank you for taking our questions. My first question is for Dr. Bridle and Dr. Phillips, whichever one of you cares to answer, maybe both of you. You've both spoken a lot today about the risks of speaking out against the dominating views on COVID-19 in Canada. What I'm wondering is if you've ever experienced or witnessed this type of muzzling before for dissenting views on medical treatment in Canada.
I have to say, I've never seen this level of censorship before in Canada. At this point, we have what's basically a completely new technology with these vaccines that are being put out. We have completely new interventions such as lockdowns, which had never been used before in public health. And the fact that in these new treatments, in my experience, physicians are often skeptical of new treatments. I was taught that to be that way in medical school because many products have been pulled off the market after they were even actually fully approved, which these vaccines are not fully approved. And so I've always been taught in my medical training to be a little bit skeptical, to look at the evidence, look who's funding the evidence, and to look to make sure that we're not jumping the gun on some of these treatments, because often recommendations reverse themselves, such as on aspirin or other interventions. So this level of censorship in forbidding physicians to be able to speak about the harms of these interventions, this mixing of politics with medicine is unprecedented, and I frankly think it's very dangerous. I haven't seen it before.
As an academic scientist, I'd like to echo those thoughts. So, can I continue? Yeah, so I'd like to echo those thoughts as an academic scientist. The underpinning of science is to have open debate. That's a critical quality control mechanism that we have within the scientific field globally. I mean, if you can't have open scientific debate, it's one of these classical examples, right, of iron sharpens iron. And it's okay to have differing opinions. And when things are new, and the literature is emerging, right? I mean, by definition, you're going to have one study that emerges, right? And then you have to look at that with a bit of a grain of salt, right? Because it's just one study. And then if you have a second study and it's an opposing opinion, right? Then we have to get more weight. But what we do as scientists, therefore, is debate is not wrong. There's nothing inherently wrong with holding different opinions. But what we do have to be obligated to do is follow the weight of the science. Just like Dr. Phillips mentioned when it comes to ivermectin, right? I actually was quite a skeptic about ivermectin. I'll be totally honest. At the beginning of the pandemic, I was a complete skeptic because I developed vaccines, and I knew that something like the vaccines could not be used in Canada under an emergency use authorization if there were good, accepted, and safe treatments available. So I was actually okay with the initial couple of papers that got published, these were trials that weren't run properly. The control group these were run in countries where the control group was taking an unknown amount of ivermectin. So essentially we were studying an ivermectin treated group to a group that was treated to an unknown degree with ivermectin. But I was okay with it because I knew vaccines, and I'm a vaccinologist, wouldn't be acceptable. But as Dr. Phillips has mentioned, because I'm developing the vaccines, I've kept a close eye on these therapies. And what I saw was over time an avalanche of data in favor of these. And I'm a scientist and I have to follow the science. Okay, so that's where I ended up with that conclusion. All right, is that and so yes, this kind of suppression is unprecedented. I've never seen it ever before.
Follow up.
My follow-up question is for MD Derek Sloan. The doctors who spoke here today mentioned that not many people in their field are willing or able to stand up because of repercussions like being slandered or losing their job. As we all know, you lost your seat in the Conservative Party because of your willingness to speak out and be frank on issues. And you're also one of the few MPs who's been critical of the government's COVID policies. If you lose your seat in the government in the next election, do you think there will still be a voice within the federal government for free speech?
Well, it's true that the party system has hijacked democracy in the sense that individual MPs are not able to express their opinions. They could, but the implications of they could and should, but the implications of doing that are clear to see. And it's very unfortunate, and I hope that the public wakes up and sees what's going on and demands that their local representatives actually represent them and not just whatever the leader of whatever party they're involved in wants to say.